Good morning. In this week's Parshat Tetzaveh, we read about the commandment to light the menorah. Now, in fact, the Torah tells us about this menorah, this gold candelabra in the temple, tells us about it 4 separate occasions. The first one is last week, Parshat Truma, when we are instructed to build it and told how to build it. The second time is this week, Parshat Tetzaveh, where the Torah says, Ve'ata tetzaveh et b'nei Israel, you must command the Jewish people, V'yikhu alecha shemen zayit zach, and they must take to you pure olive oil, katit lama'or, crushed to give light, la'alot ner tamid, to raise up the eternal light. And more is spelled out about the lighting of that menorah. The third time that it's mentioned is in a few weeks' time, Parshat Emor, in the middle of the book of Vayikra. And the fourth, where almost identical verses to what we have at the beginning of our Parsha. And the fourth time it's mentioned is at the beginning of Parshat Beha'alotcha, in the book of Bamidbar. It is the third Parsha of Parshat Bamidbar. There again we speak about the lighting of the menorah. So it would certainly be worthwhile to discuss the similarities and differences between those 4 times. It's not what we're going to be doing today, but maybe at some future occasion. But there are a few points I'd like to focus on with the menorah. One is that the menorah is always seen as a symbol of the Torah. King Solomon Shlomo HaMelech said in the book of Mishlei, Ki ner mitzvah v'Torah or. A mitzvah is a candle, and Torah is light. So he says Torah is something that illuminates, that gives light. So the menorah and the Torah are both seen as that symbol. And that's one of the reasons why the menorah is such a powerful symbol to the Jewish people. Not just because it was in the temple. Because the truth is there were other things in the temple also. There was the table, the golden table on which the bread was kept every week. That hasn't become a symbol of Judaism. There was the altar, both the golden altar inside the building and the copper altar outside the building. Neither of those have become a symbol of Judaism. Even the Aron Kodesh, the Holy Ark, the centerpiece that was in the Holy of Holies of the entire temple, has not become a symbol of Judaism, and yet the menorah has. And one of the reasons is because the menorah represents this clarifying, light-giving quality of the Torah. And what the Torah says over here is that this must be pure olive oil, katit lama'or, crushed or squeezed for light. And Rashi says something very interesting, that the way this olive oil has to be prepared, there's 2 ways to prepare olive oil. There's either that you squeeze the olive, or what you do is you actually crush the olive. All the oil and the olive itself becomes crushed, and then you filter that, remove all of the dregs, and you're left with olive oil. Now, the difference, which is quite clear, I think, is that when you just squeeze the olive, you get out a smaller quantity of oil, but the oil that comes out is absolutely pure without any dregs in whatsoever. However, when you crush the olive oil, when you crush the olives to extract the oil, you have a greater quantity of oil, though the quality is not quite as good. Even though you filter out the dregs, there's always a little bit, as anybody who has had filter coffee can tell you, there's always a little bit that gets past the filter. Now, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein takes a look at this and he says, well and good that these are the 2 different ways, but at the end of the day, the product is basically the same. We understand that it is better, it is a higher level of oil to have this olive oil that was never ground, it was never mashed, it was simply pressed. I understand it's better, but what are we supposed to learn from that about our study of Torah? Because all of these things in the temple, apart from their intrinsic mitzvot and their intrinsic existence, represent something to us and teach us lessons. And as we've said, the menorah is a symbol of Torah. And so he says, what are we supposed to learn from the fact that this oil from the menorah had to be pure? And he says, when it comes to people who are teaching Torah, they must be pure and their behavior must be pure from its inception. See, he says there's 2 ways things can go about. You can do the right thing and it's clear along the entire time and the entire process that you've been doing the right thing, or you can do the right thing, but it comes across perhaps as a little bit wrong, and you have to explain and justify why it actually was right. And so he says those are the two kinds of oil over here. The first kind of oil is a person who does an action which is just pure olive oil, which is just pure goodness, which is apparent to all, and there's nothing to talk about. He says, then you have the actions, where mixed up within what you've done appears to be the oil and the dregs, and you're going to need to filter out the dregs before you can have the oil. I do something which is somewhat ambiguous, which doesn't seem all that good or holy or pure, and then what I have to do is explain, filter out, justify, put it in context. And he says, for those people who are teaching Torah, they have to be pure role models. They have to be beyond reproach. It has to be that their actions are pure without justification. Now, when I mentioned this to somebody this week, he said it sounds like nobody's going to ever fit that category. So I don't think we should think for a second that Rabbi Moshe Feinstein was being naive. I think he understood how the world works and that there's always room for misunderstanding. But we're speaking about the ideal, and we're speaking about what you have to strive to, and we're speaking about the responsibility that you have as far as you are able. Don't do things which look bad and then justify and explain and think in advance how I'm going to explain this away if it ever comes up. Don't do it. If you're going to have to explain it and justify it, perhaps you shouldn't do it, or perhaps you should do it in a different way. There's another point I'd like to raise also from Rashi, that he points out, this is called lehalot ner tamid, to bring up to light the eternal light. The menorah is called the ner tamid, the always light. And actually based on that, we have a ner tamid in every shul in the world. Every shul in the world has a light that is that's there always. You can see ours over there. That's our ner tamid. It's lit all the time. The Torah has every shul has this ner tamid, this eternal light. Now our lights in every shul are there every day, all day. Day and night, never goes off. There's no light switch for that light. It's part of the wiring. The only time that's ever going off is if the power fails for the whole building. But that light's on there forever. And yet the menorah, which is called the Ner Tamid, an eternal light, was not lit all the time. In fact, the menorah was only lit in the evening. It lasted until the morning. And then when it ran out of oil, it finished. That's it. The time that it did last day and night was during Hanukkah, where it lasted for those 8 days continuously. So it actually lasted 16 times longer than usual. Possibly, unless they extinguished it. That's something to think about. But the candles would be lit at night, and they would last through till the next day. So why is it called a Ner Tamid? So Rashi says, Tamid doesn't necessarily mean constant, always. It also means consistent. He says that is something that it's called the Ner Tamid because it was lit every single day, evening. Not that it was lit all the time, not that it was lit every hour of the day, giving illumination every hour of the day. It's because it was lit every single day. There was that consistency that makes it tamidi, that makes it an always light, because it was there every single day. And that's something to think about for the good and positive and important things that we do. You talk about doing something all the time, that sounds like it's very, very difficult and a big commitment. But you know what? If you do something every single day, whether it's a lot or whether it's a little bit, every single day, that's tamid. That's the lesson we should be taking. There's got to be a consistency. You do something a little bit here, a little bit there, one day off, one day on, you're not going anywhere with that. You're just playing around. You want to be serious about something, you want to grow spiritually, you want to achieve something with your life. The way to do that is through consistency. Take something and stick to it. It doesn't necessarily have to be a big thing. Whatever it is, you take it and you stick to it. Have consistency, have a timidi, make it always. Have a wonderful Shabbos.